All right, welcome back to the show. It's March 24th here. I'm Nathan Creeps, joined by my co-host Bryce Bortschelder. Today is the off-season national championship for the University of Iowa, and we got a lot of good content covering that. We're going to talk about here a little bit later in the episode. I just got back from Dallas. I want to I
Welcome
want
home.
to I want to jump into that, see how you were these last couple of days. Been off grid, trying to get back in the swing of things, but it was an absolute roller coaster getting out to
Yeah,
Dallas.
we were so fired up for March Madness weekend. It's one of the best weekends of the year if you're a basketball fan. And yeah, we obviously previewed it, said we were going to do some golfing. And you had plans to go down to Dallas, visit Berkey, and it was just not quite the smoothest travel of all time, was it?
Nope, and that sometimes you just gotta expect that for traveling. I luckily in all my previous travels, I've never really had any problems with flights ever.
Mm.
But I know people who go a lot more than me. Obviously, like yeah, this is what happens. You're at the mercy of the airplane. But yeah, I was supposed to fly out last Wednesday at 1 o'clock, get to Dallas right around 3 o'clock, and a couple of days before I saw there's gonna be a blizzard going on. So I messaged my brother-in-law, who's a pilot for Delta. I'm like, hey, is this gonna be any problems? Is there anything I should worry about this? Well, I have a little anxiety about this. And he
Yeah.
looked into it and everything. And he's like, nah, he's like, I think you'll be fine. But what he noted down, he didn't want to tell me this. He put a note down in his notes. He didn't want to tell me this because he knew I was already worked up about the flight. He
Yeah.
honestly thought the flight was going to go out. Well, my flight got canceled first thing in the morning. So I'm
Uh-huh.
sketching. And I call out. There's one other option going out later in the day. And there's one that left early in the morning. And I call and I get the last seat. And while I was trying to book that last one, she's like, "Oh my god, someone just took it." I'm like, "No
Like
way."
the like the
Yeah,
person you're trying to book the
yeah,
ticket with at the
yeah,
airport.
yeah. The American Airlines. I was on the phone. She's like, "Oh my god, someone just took that last seat." I'm like, "No." And then she refresh it. She's like, "Oh my god, it's back open." I'm like, "Ma'am, get me the effing seat, please." We got the seat, and I was supposed to fly at like 6 or 7 o'clock. And
Uh-huh.
as it gets closer, it gets delayed an hour, and it gets delayed another hour, and then it stops, and there's no updates. So I made a decision. I got down to Cedar Rapids, get to the airport, had one drink, and flights canceled. And
So you drove all the way from Cedar Falls, get your drink, and then it's I. You
uh,
know, when you're snapping me throughout that first day, I thought that you were in the airport the whole day. So I'm actually glad you didn't go down right away.
nope, I went
So
about 5 hours early though. And if you know the
okay,
Eastern
that's still a
Iowa,
long time.
there's not a lot of things. I was so bored because I was anticipating leaving way earlier. So and when I got down there, then obviously everyone's just trying to. It's a mad mess. Everyone's pissed, yelling at American Airlines
Yeah.
and trying to get flights for the as soon as possible. And at one point, I'm like, I called Mike. I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to make it, dude. There's just no options. Every flight from Des Moines going to Dallas next day was booked. Moline was all booked. There's just no connections except there was one. And I got the very last seat, but I had to do a layover in Charlotte. But I only had 20 minutes to make my connection. So it was a gamble. Luckily, we got there an hour early. They must have booked
Okay.
it in the air. But yeah, I almost got the Charlotte, got right on the next plane, got to Dallas, and it was stressful, but we got her done, man.
It all worked out kind of. Did you miss a tea time on Thursday morning? Because I know you originally planned
Yeah,
on getting there Wednesday night.
we did miss the tea time Thursday morning. Is what it is. We want to get some golf in before any NCAA tournament games tipped off, but we did make up for it yesterday. And probably one of the best runs I've ever played.
Oh, really? Did you
Uh,
go to Dyke? No, no, no. You were still in Dallas.
yep,
Where
still
do
in
you guys
Dallas.
play?
I don't know what that course was called. Not sure what it's called, but it's really short. So,
Nice. Like
uh-huh,
good way
but
to start outdoor
uh,
golf for the year.
yeah. So we got teed up with two other guys who were military dudes, and they were decent. They were just like Mike and I. So we played them a scramble, and it came down to the final hole, and we got them by one stroke.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
it
Hey,
was, yeah. Texas was an awesome time. It was way warmer down there, dude. It was like 85 degrees.
yeah, we had a pretty good weekend here. It just was kind of like off and on, similar to the last couple of weeks where you get some rain. You're worried about maybe a little bit of snow. Obviously, like that interrupted your travel plans. But the rest of the weekend after that day felt pretty great. We did get outside as well at the Legacy Golf Club in Norwalk. Yeah, very very similar weekends. I'm glad you made it down because you were very pumped for everything. Um, but man, you just can never you never know what's going to happen at the airport. So
No,
I'm in the same boat. I don't travel enough to have enough issues with airports, but I know it can happen. The worst I've ever had is a 7 hour delay, which didn't really interrupt anything, but I've heard horror stories. So Glad you made it there and back. And man, we had quite the weekend of March Madness too. The spirits were pretty freaking high going into Saturday.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Iowa teams are just cursed anywhere
Mm-hmm.
around the round 32 or Sweet 16 when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
the NCAA tournament. And yeah, Drake capped it off the first day I get there. Had a couple drinks, and right away Drake was playing basketball, and they played exactly how we thought they would play.
Yep.
And they played their style of ball, which I said I wanted them to do because Missouri is a very up tempo team, and they took care of them from the get go. You know, Missouri made a little run, which you knew they would. They had firepower, but
Mm-hmm.
Bennett Sturts was doing his voodoo magic shots to limit any Missouri comeback.
Yeah. No, everything that we kind of highlighted, you've watched enough ball that you knew basically what the game plan needed to be. And if you guys watched that last episode, Nate predicted pretty much everything. They controlled the tempo, they got turnovers, and they definitely dominated boards. And it obviously helps when Bennett Sturts is taking floaters from the 3-point line and they're going in. I mean, I did win some money on that game. I had a lot of faith. I had even more faith going into the Iowa State game. So it was like just the best first round of basketball betting I've had in a long time, and then just all the homer bets caught up to me on the second round. But
Yeah,
I was having a pretty good time. I was really enjoying the Drake hype, and then I know that people think that we're Homer Hawkeyes and we don't like Iowa State, but I was cheering for them, and so to have back to back days where you have two teams going to the second round, it was pretty fun.
yeah. So we'll jump into the round 32 for Drake, and then we'll go cover Iowa State's
Yeah.
NCAA tournament. But yeah, and it was the same game plan for Texas Tech. Make sure you control your style of ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what Texas Tech did this game to make sure Drake never got in the rhythm was make every single shot in the paint.
Mm-hmm.
They, I'm not saying the defense was bad. I thought the defense was up to par. They just made tough shots. They were ooping off the backboard, hitting it off their hands, and accidentally going in the hoop. It was this
Mm-hmm.
Texas Tech day. A lot of good athletes, a lot of good finishers around the rim, and Drake tried everything they could. It just Texas Tech just kept making the shot, and at some point
Yep.
you fall victim to it.
Mm-hmm. I think we realistically knew that the height and the athleticism was eventually going to catch up to you. I think we're going to see a very athletic Final Four. I think we're going to see a very athletic championship. And like you said, it's the stuff around the rim. We have dogs on this team. That team was so fun to watch, but eventually the athleticism catches up to you. Like it's going to be impossible to keep up with a team that can consistently tip the ball in like that and get those easy buckets.
But nevertheless, what an unbelievable season for Drake.
Yep.
Bringing in 4 Division II players. It was the best story in college basketball, and to my point, it ends as the best story in college basketball this year. There's no doubt about it, and that's why it was so special. We have a very hot topic that we're going to jump into here after we get through Iowa State. So absolutely tip of the hat to all the Drake fans. I was honored to be just a very small part of it. And enjoyed all the games, and man, just a remarkable season. And you look at Iowa State, who was supposed to have the best season in school history, comes down to another disastrous ending.
Yeah. I got my moment. Back in November, I hadn't watched a lot of Cyclone basketball. We predicted that if history repeats itself, then there's going to be these moments in the tournament where you need a couple guys to step up, you need guaranteed looks, and you need guys to hit shots. And I wasn't even happy about it, honestly. Like we got a lot of heat because they're like, do you guys even watch basketball? Are you non-ball knowers? And that hurts a little bit because you're like, I mean, I feel like I know what I'm talking about. I've watched a lot of Iowa State games. And so it was kind of I told you so, but I didn't want to tell you so because that is exactly what happened. Milan goes cold. Curtis Jones goes cold besides the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes. It's just sad, man. I had a lot of faith. I mean, yes, it hurts having Keyshawn out. What was your takeaway from this game? Because it kind of just felt like they just had an off night to me.
Yeah, our early season prediction, like we said, I'm like, well, yeah, if history repeats itself, this is what's going to happen. Then a couple more weekends progressed after that statement. I'm like, okay, this team might have a chance.
Yes.
They're loaded, size, talent, shooters everywhere. This is an
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable team. And then the Caleb Love shot happens and Tucson. And ever since
Mm-hmm.
that moment, there's just a weird rhythm that Iowa State couldn't get back into who they were previous to that game.
Mm-hmm.
And injuries obviously uh, conflicted throughout the
Yeah.
season, preventing them to try to get back into rhythm and just not being fully healthy. Then you lose a guy. I mean, still, even with all that happening, you still felt good about Iowa State, especially with that bracket that they got released to,
Hmm.
right? Lipscomb, who was terrible. That team was terrible. And a lot of mid majors struggle this year, right? Because of NIL.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that's what we're going to see moving in the future tournaments. But Iowa State,
Yeah.
it took care of them. And we said Ole Miss is overrated like everyone else in the country. And they must have heard that. And Ole Miss was unbeatable. Even if Iowa State played any better, I don't know if you're beating Ole Miss after that game. They could not miss.
Yeah, they were on fire. They had something to prove for sure. And I heard allegedly Coach Beard walked over to some of the Iowa State media and said, "Is anybody from CBS here?" Because they heard all the chatter before. They
Yep.
heard guys like us, the small guys up to the big guys, saying that they were overrated and they didn't deserve to be that high, to be in the tournament at all. I don't know what everyone was saying, but we definitely overlooked them.
Yeah, we were at B Dubs watching Ole Miss's first game. I can't remember who they played. Do you remember?
6 versus 11. I don't remember. No.
God, who did that? Anyways, driving me. Well, the guy sitting next to us was a big Ole Miss fan, and I was like, "What's the scoop, man?" I'm like, "Hey, should I be betting on this team?" He's like, "Yes, you absolutely should. Don't be listening." I mean, sure, he's a biased homer out Ole Miss fan, but he's like the headband guy, Padilla. He's a baller. Okay,
Yeah.
so this guy was all hyped up. So I'm like, God, you know what? This Ole Miss team might cause Iowa State some problems.
Mm-hmm.
And when you kind of go into the game, maybe overlooking them slightly, and that team just comes out and has plays 10 times better than they probably have played all season. It's just
Mm-hmm.
a hit to the back of the head you're not anticipating.
Yeah, and almost the exact same thing that happened to Drake, where you catch a team on a hot night and they're getting shots to go their way, and the tip-ins go in, and just the rain of floaters, the and ones. Yeah, you cannot have an off shooting night when you have a team like that has something to prove and is having things go their way.
It's just it's a common story sometimes, and especially when it comes to March Madness. It's those weird power forward teams that kind of struggled throughout the season, but they caught fire at the right time. NC State
Mm-hmm.
last year, no matter what you did, they were so gelled and they were so ready for the moment. And when you continuously see shots just fall in, you just catch a certain momentum that it's unstoppable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
And,
almost inevitable.
but it'll go down as one of the biggest disappointments in Iowa State history.
Yeah, and shoot, I'll say it again. I know that I had a little chip on my shoulder because we got attacked by Larry and the rest of the Cyclone Mafia. That being said, I did want to see an Iowa team. I wanted to rally behind somebody. I wanted to get out of the first weekend, and have something to cheer for in week two.
Iowa teams are just so cursed in that tournament. They just can't get the job done.
Yeah. Let me know what you think of this opinion. I've been watching, the last couple of years, and it's kind of I don't know if it's a crazy take, but I feel like the battle that a lot of Iowa teams have is that we stack teams in a way that makes them competitive in the conference, but doesn't necessarily make you competitive for cross conference play. I don't know what the stats would say for the ACC Big Ten tournament or Big 12 and their respective out of conference in the beginning of the season, but it certainly feels that way in the end of the season. Like it just doesn't seem like we have great matchups when it comes to the second round and Sweet 16.
Yeah, I was always saying that the last previous years with Iowa's basketball teams. I'm like, every time I go to the NCAA tournament, these guards on other teams from other conferences are so lengthy, so quick, and they're just unstoppable. You can't guard
Right.
them. Is maybe the conferences we're in, we just been so accustomed to big play, like the Luka Garza era, like big post dominant players taking over, and you can get by with that in your conference. And
Yeah.
then you get outside of it and you find one of these terrible matchups, like when Iowa played Oregon when we were Iowa's number 2 seed. We stood no chance, but Garza
Hmm.
still put up 30 plus points, and then just
Yeah.
had a bunch of 6'7" dudes who were just athletic as hell, and there's no stopping them.
Yeah. And something, as far as the Big Ten is concerned, the exciting thing about the news that we're breaking, well, not necessarily breaking, I think David E. broke it about 24 hours early. There is not the brand of Big Ten basketball is not very defensive minded. And you see in the tournament, everybody can score, but it's the teams that make the stops that are the ones that advance. And man, like, cool, Garza went off for 30, but you had no chance of stopping that 6'7" lengthy guard.
And that leads us right into our next topic because it was Iowa's off-season national championship day, bringing in Coach McCollum from Drake. And Coach McCollum from Drake is a guy who's won championships, right? Sure, at the D2 level, but his philosophy was built upon defense. Defense wins championship. Going back to the old days when you always heard as a kid, defense wins championships.
Mm-hmm.
That's his philosophy, and that's what he's done at the D2 level. He came first year, got his team all the way to the Missouri Valley Conference Championship, won it with their defense, their
Yeah.
energy, their chemistry, and a little bit of lack of offense, but you had enough players to get the job done at the level of efficiency defense you're playing. But what an unbelievable hire from Beth Getz to
Yes.
bring in Coach McCollum. I know usually we kind of been right all season about predicting some things, and we were wrong about the Darren DeVries, but I think everybody in the state was. I think we were just Iowa fans hyped. We're looking for
We
a
wanted
change,
something to be
and
excited about.
my bandwagon Drake and me. I'm like, oh, okay. At that time, best case scenario is Coach McCollum stay at Drake, and I get Darren DeVries, and I can still love them both. And then as time progressed, before even we made that prediction, after we made that prediction, and before we found out DeVries was going to Indiana, I found myself saying, I'm like, you know what? I was texting my brother and everyone. I'm like, I don't think I want DeVries actually. I have a gut
No.
feeling I would way rather have McCollum. The
Yes.
reason why is because it came more realistic to me that McCollum's gone. And I don't
Yeah.
want this guy leaving the state. If this guy's going to leave the state, that's a loss to the state. It's a loss to the University of Iowa. Obviously, it's a loss to Drake. I'm like, if that's the case, bring him to Iowa then. Yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
sucks for Drake. There's no doubt about it. It's a terrible time to be a mid-major fan, a mid-major athletic director, a mid-major coach. Brian Harden is one of the best ADs in the entire country. And
Yeah.
the better he keeps doing, the more it turns around, haunts him almost,
Mm-hmm.
He's,
Yep. All
so
his guys keep getting nabbed up. So the Ben McCollum era starts in Iowa City. 4 national championships in 6 years at Northwest Missouri State, right? And then a Missouri Valley title, regular season and conference tournament. And I think he's got like an 80% winning percentage or something insane so far.
slightly over 80%. Yeah. And what we talked about, the DeVries character is like, we need an Iowan to take over this program. Someone that the fans that Iowa's only selling 5,000 tickets per game to a 15,000 seat arena. We need something to inject life into us, not just a good coach, but something that can feel attached to. And
Mm-hmm.
what better option right now is Ben McCollum? This is the greatest hire in Iowa athletic history. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
And
I'll say this: it is the most. I mean, we haven't got churned through very many football coaches since I've been alive. We've had 2 since 1995. This is the most excited I've been for a hire in a very, very long time. Professionally, when my Vikings got O'Connell, I felt the same way. These are culture-changing guys, and you mentioned McCollum doesn't score a lot of points. Offensively, he ranks low, but if you look at his offensive efficiency, that's the stuff that gets really exciting. So then you mix in potentially a little bit better recruiting pipeline with his defense philosophy, and just a little. I think he's going to bring a different persona to the entire Big Ten. I really like the matchup that he's going to bring to that conference.
And yeah, there's no doubt about it. We talked about his coach brilliance of the mind he has for basketball, but the biggest part right now is the culture presence he's
Mm-hmm.
restored back in the Iowa men's basketball program. I mean, how dead has Carver been here the last couple of years? And I'm seeing tweets from the Hawkeye Nest emailing students that, hey, his press conference is tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday at 3:30. There's a uniform or a wear white polo. The first 100 attendees will get a gold tie. This tradition that we kind of saw at Taryn T, our little Drake fan kid over at
Yeah.
Drake kind of start, and you saw some older grown men pick it up, carry it
Yeah.
over, and you saw Iowa post today for the first time, just a white polo with a gold
Immediately getting
tie.
behind it.
Sweet, it was awesome. That's what you want. You're dressing up like this dude. You're feeling
Mm-hmm.
attached to this guy. You're excited for this guy. I have never felt more buzz ever about Iowa
Yeah.
men's program than right now. It's not
Yeah.
even close.
Yeah. So we mentioned Coach Beard, right? He's brought 2 different teams to the Sweet 16. I think even the Elite Eight in his previous run, and now Ole Miss to the Sweet 16. TJ Otzelberger. These are the kinds of guys that just change culture. Like these are the kind of guys you can rally behind. Yeah, I'm going to go back to some comments on some of our clips last week. We kind of went out there and said this is a hard team. Iowa men's basketball is a hard program to invest in as far as NIL funds are concerned. And I think I kind of stand with our original assumption. I know that it's kind of chicken before the egg, but if this guy doesn't get you excited, then you might as well just wrap up the basketball program because the funds should be pouring in for this guy.
And the best part about this is in the next couple of days, you're just gonna see more news keep popping up with potential players, because the next biggest question is Bennett Sturt's coming?
Uh-huh.
And
Yep.
we've seen one report so far from Elliot Koff quote tweeting that guy from MVC analyst who works for ESPN saying that Bennett Sturts will be following Ben McCollum on over, but that's the only thing I've seen so far, and that's been like a 2-hour post, which kind of concerns me. And
Yeah, no,
I'm
no
not going to
updates
believe
as of
anything
3:30.
because I saw a post yesterday saying Coach McCollum is finalizing a deal, and then I'm hearing him. You know how many times I scrolled my thumb
Oh, I
on to
was just
refresh my
refreshing.
Twitter? I was with my cousin. I would just ruin our entire Sunday, and obviously we never got the news. So I'm going to sit back, hope for the best that Sturts follows him, because right there you're bringing the Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year, honorable All-American in college basketball this year, to facilitate your team, your brand new team at Iowa. And I absolutely trust Sturts and McCollum with their IQs, their chemistry, to start building this program from those two.
Yeah. Yeah, the excitement has jumbled my thoughts a little bit, but in the same vein as donations and funds to go around, I think as a player, there's, probably 5 to maybe 10 coaches that you'd really want to play for. And in my head, McCollum falls in that column for sure.
If we get Sturts, which I'm hoping we do, and maybe get Banks and Isaiah Howard to come on over, you go right back and you try to grab Sanford and Dix with everything you have. And Sanford's going to get some big money. Not Sanford, he will, but Dix is going to get some big money tossed at him. I've heard of potentially John Shire from Duke has been in contact. Bill Self. I know Creighton probably would be the perfect fit for Josh Dix, and these programs going to offer him a whole lot bigger bag, baby.
Yeah. So today the portal opens, and it just gives, again, Beth gets huge, the amount of pressure that was on her shoulders to secure a coach, because as soon as the portal opens, you don't know who you're going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so impressed with her because it could quickly have gone not this way and things really go downhill.
2 bombshell awesome fires for her to begin her career, and she sticks her foot down. She's made 2 really tough fires of blood that's been in the Iowa program, which we respect, but at the same time there needs to be change. Mm-hmm. And when it's clear and obvious that there needs to be change, she hasn't hesitated. She's got the job done, and then she's made 2 awesome hires. Mm-hmm. Man, this offseason is going to be a lot of fun to see a whole new team, how McCollum builds this guys. These next couple of days are going to be a roller coaster ride. And
I'm excited. I think as a basketball fan in general, too, if you're an Iowa State fan, Drake fan, UNI fan, you're looking at least now 3 either historic coaches that have had winning success. You're looking at Jacobson, thumbs up. You're looking at TJ Otzelberger, who's gotten more wins in this century than the entire Iowa Hawkeyes program in the tournament. And now you're bringing McCollum into Iowa. I have a lot of faith, as you said, in Drake's AD and bringing in a 4th coach. And as basketball fans, we should be excited about it.
The coolest part is that you and I actually chatted a coach.
Yeah.
So we have a way of willing our things. I'm not saying I was trying to get him to come to Iowa, but I did show him a little Hawkeye logo.
You did. Did you ever find that clip?
No, I didn't.
You showed him that you had a little Hawkeye underneath, and it was almost a foreshadow.
He just smiled, but I
said nobody watches. The best joke ever is that nobody watches the show, but everything that happens on the show happens in real life. It's just it's like this weird simulation that we're in.
Yeah, but I didn't. I find that clip. I wonder if I did it before we started recording. Ye I don't know. I gotta find that
Oh
clip
man,
though.
I don't remember now. It was very early in the episode. If it wasn't just before, you might be right. Shoot, it's in there, folks. So we showed Coach obviously a little Drake love with the merch, but we also had a little Hawkeye underneath.
And before we wrap up this episode, we've been with Drake all year, right? And I just can't. Honestly, the bulldog in me, like I explained why I wanted him to be there, and I wanted the Reese for a little bit, but I came to the realization of what's probably going to happen, and if that's going to be the case, I want it to benefit Iowa, and not some outside school like in Indiana, someone taking this guy. And I just can't imagine for the full time Drake fans, I
Mm-hmm.
the pain and suffering they've gone through. They've had the Colorado State coach Nico that coached at Drake for 1 year, who now just accepted a job at Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
You had Darren DeVries, who was there for a while. Darren DeVries was pretty loyal there to the Drake program. Got his chance with the West Virginia for 1 year, dipped there as fast as he could to get right there, the Indiana Hoosiers. And what a game that's going to be if
Mm-hmm.
Indiana plays at Carver Hawkeye this year. The
Yeah.
atmosphere that's going to be. But what I'm trying to get at is all the respect to Drake Nation, Michael Admire, and especially Brian Harden, the
Mm-hmm.
best AD, I think, out there in the country. And for the pain and suffer they got to keep going through, but they put their foot down and they keep reestablishing this program, right? The
Yep.
three-time Missouri Valley Conference tournament champions, and winning there is now standard.
Yes, I saw tweets like that I totally agree with. That now you've set a bar of success, right? Like you are going to be in this situation, and we didn't touch on it too much because there's just so much going on right now in basketball news. But it's tough to be it's tough to be a mid major in this time in this era. It's going to be tougher and tougher to win in the tournament. It's going to be tough to keep coaches, and it's going to be tough to keep players. So you lean heavy on those great IDs to keep refilling, and unfortunately, most likely being a pipeline for the big dogs. But yeah, the Drake fandom doesn't die here, Nate. I will be back at the Knapp Center next year as a Des Moines local, and I'll cheer them on whether they're 30-4 or 14-20, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, when you cut my blood, you're going to see 90% gold come out of me and 10% blue right there, But I'm
Yep.
very faithful to that blue, and I love them. I'll keep supporting them. I'm invested in them, and I trust Brian Harden to keep doing what he's been doing.
Yeah. Yep. Nate, before we sign off, give me a prediction after week one. Who do you like in the Final Four? Who do you like as a champion?
Be weary of the Arkansas Razorbacks with Calipari. That's my dark horse for them making a run. Florida did just enough to edge by UConn, and obviously UConn's had a lot of history here the last couple tournaments. I still like Auburn though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
haven't been playing the best, but they're taking care of business, and I trust them with the most talent. Watched enough of them throughout the regular season. I know that doesn't mean anything when you get to the postseason. I'm still going to take Auburn to win, but Duke's looked unbelievable.
I was going to say, I like all the teams you listed at Duke if they shoot like they did in the first weekend, because that was an unbelievable performance to the point where you have a Cooper Flag that's probably at 85, 90%. And it's almost like you don't even need him because they have so many guys that can consistently hit the three ball. But I agree. Razorbacks looked great. Auburn and Florida are athletic and just savvy. But I have them. I have Duke in my Final Four and my champion, so I need them.
I got Duke as one of my champions and then Auburn as
Okay.
my other champion. But yeah, that was betting wise, it was terrible. One of the worst weeks ever. We opened up with a Baylor win and a Drake win, right? Which we're feeling good, and then we probably lost like 10 straight after that.
Yeah.
The final bet was Colorado State money line last night,
Tough.
and then
That was a
and
tough
then
beat.
just to cap a terrible betting streak. And yeah, that's who we honestly we're asking for because we always bet the underdog. That's why I love
Mm-hmm.
March Madness. But if I want to be a little bit smarter moving forward and see how NIL has affected these mid-major programs, especially in the NCAA tournament, maybe. But we'll see. We'll see how the
Mm-hmm.
years progress. And for any loyal listeners out there, like we said, we were going to do some heavy coverage for the basketball season in here in March. Obviously, if McCollum can switch over to Iowa, starting back up next week, we're going to be jumping back into some of our usual content form for 5 segments, Iowa related news, and a little bit of sports. And we're looking forward to getting back on a regular basis, man.
Yeah. Yep. The madness has kind of ended for the state of Iowa. Um, I'll still be watching, but it's time to get back to the roots here. I'm excited for the rest of the shows, and very excited for Hawkeye men's basketball.
Yeah. I'm gonna go. I'll be on Twitter here for the next 12 hours now, and I've been on Twitter for the last 24 hours, basically.
Yeah, I'm hoping in a week's time we have very good news about some transfers and the bright future of Iowa basketball.
Yeah.
And Iowa State fans, Drake fans, don't hang your head. You guys had a great tournament, great seasons, and nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah. It's off-season championship time right now, and I always got the front runner, baby. And I'm looking forward to Coach McCollum's press conference tomorrow.
Yeah, Nate, good to have you back in the state.
Yeah, I need it, man. I need to regroup myself and just get back in the flow.
All right, people. Talk to you next week.